Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying safe during this time. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Like I said, thank you so much for checking me out. If you haven't done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button just right below the video. Cool, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thanks again for your support. I truly do appreciate having you here.
As I'm recording this, it's late Thursday, and this will post Friday morning, so I know this was a couple days in the past, but a great podcast where the author of the article discussed in detail what was happening and what was in the article, and this was available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. I'll link down below the link for the full briefing if you want to be able to hear this. There were other topics discussed as well, but this particular part I think was really good for us as a community and great for the mainstream audience who might not be as aware of what's going on here to hear. The Wall Street Journal, obviously a major publication, their podcast is pretty popular on both these platforms. But in this session they had, this is called the crypto trial that could reshape how the industry is regulated. The lawsuit between the SEC and crypto startup Ripple will test just how far regulators can go in enforcing old finance and trading rules with cryptocurrencies. So Dave Michaels, who's the reporter that broke the article, covers financial enforcement, and he joined Zoe Thomas, who's hosting the podcast here, to discuss this case, which we know is very closely watched, and how players in crypto are thinking they can use the verdict to their advantage. Now again, this is the transcript. If you want to hear it as they have their discussion, it'll be linked down below. You can see Apple, Spotify, also available on Amazon and Google Podcasts and Amazon Music. So here is the full transcript. We'll skip through some of the talking points where they're discussing other things in the headlines earlier this week, but we'll jump right into this as she talks about what is happening with cryptos. So this is Zoe, the podcast host. Alright, coming up, who decides if a digital asset is a commodity or a security, and when do they have to make that decision? These are the questions at the heart of a lawsuit that could shake up the crypto space. We'll discuss that now. So cryptos are something of an odd duck because they're decentralized and often don't operate like traditional financial instruments. It can be hard to regulate them or even pin down exactly what type of asset they are. Over the last few years, the SEC has taken a stab at this. In 2017, it said many companies selling crypto should follow laws that were written to protect investors from fraud and misleading hype. Since then, it's brought enforcement action against 56 issuers of digital tokens, according to Cornerstone Research. Almost all of those were settled out of court, but one case the SEC brought against crypto startup Ripple Labs is headed to trial, and the outcome could have a big impact on how digital currencies are traded and regulated. So now she's going to introduce Dave here. Again, he covers financial enforcement for the Wall Street Journal, and he was the author of the article just published. So she says, let's start with some specifics in this case because it's a little tricky. What is the SEC accusing Ripple of? The SEC has accused Ripple of illegally selling a crypto over the course of about 6 or 7 years. The crypto is called XRP, and Ripple sold almost $1.4 billion worth of XRP. The SEC has also sued 2 executives who work at Ripple, and essentially the argument is that Ripple violated laws that are meant to protect investors by not treating XRP as what's known as a security. And she says, and what has Ripple's response been here? Well, fundamentally, they say that XRP is not a security. It's not the kind of investment that the SEC regulates. The asset is just fundamentally different than a stock or bond or something like that. They also say that the SEC has been kind of stingy with information about the details of crypto assets, of what kinds of crypto assets fall under its jurisdiction. So that is part of what Ripple calls its fair notice defense. It didn't have fair notice on how the laws apply to XRP. And then one other fact that's interesting is that Ripple was selling XRP as early as 2013 and 2014. Some of the conduct here that is alleged to have been illegal predates the sort of public notice that the SEC gave the market about how it would regulate those assets, which is interesting. It's a fact that is not found in a lot of the other crypto cases. Pausing from this podcast, when we talk about this, the one differentiator, when you look at Kick or Telegram or any of these others, the SEC may have said something on newer cryptos, but in the case of XRP, we're going back to 2013 and 14 when there really wasn't anything put out by the SEC at all. They hadn't had their discussions or any of their guidance or memos or any kind of speech talking about this. The Hinman speech, remember, was in 2018. So years beforehand, XRP was already being sold by Ripple, the company. So Zoe asks, we use the term digital currency or crypto a lot for this industry. It's kind of a blanket term. But how does XRP, Ripple's currency in particular, fit into the broader ecosystem and the debate about regulation? So Dave, the author again of the article, says in response, that's a good question. It's sort of the biggest test of whether cryptos can be truly something more akin to digital money. So I think a lot of people know that Bitcoin is viewed as digital money or digital gold, and the federal regulators do not regard Bitcoin as a type of investment that would need to follow federal rules when you buy and sell it. But there are so many other cryptocurrencies, hundreds and thousands, whose legal status is not as clear as Bitcoin's, and there's a whole analysis that a creator of cryptocurrency needs to do on the front end to make an informed judgment about whether that asset is the kind of thing the SEC would regulate, or is it closer to something like what Bitcoin is, which is really a commodity, which is mostly exempt from federal regulations. So Zoe asks, it sort of sounds like you're saying it's up to the creator of the digital asset to decide whether they think it's a currency or a security. And he says, well, it is. When you sell something in the US, let's just say for the sake of argument, you're using it to raise money for your business. You have a responsibility to analyze what regulations do I have to comply with. And some in crypto say that you should just be able to go to the SEC and get a thumbs up or thumbs down. Like the SEC should just tell you, is this a security or not? And that's a good question if it should work that way. But I think what we've learned over the last few years is it doesn't always work that way, and the SEC expects you to have lawyers to help you think through what you're doing and whether you need to comply with investor protection rules. So she says, alright, so where are we now with the case, and what might the broader implications be when we finally do get to a decision? So Mr. Michaels says, we are still sort of in the procedural back and forth where Ripple is really trying to slim or negate the SEC case, And I should say that the individuals who've been sued, 2 executives at Ripple, are trying to do the same thing. Remember, that's Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. They're trying to get the judge to dismiss the case on legal grounds. We have some more hurdles like that to get over before we get to a trial, which is probably sometime in 2023. But this case in the crypto world has been very closely followed. As you and I know, pausing for a second from the discussion here, we've been looking at this since December of 2020. We've been talking about it on the channel. We've been following every document. We've looked very closely. You have over 65,000 people in the U.S. who are signed on with John Deaton. You have roughly 20,000 individuals who have signed the petition who are international holders of XRP, wanting to see something happen here and get a quick resolution. We're still waiting, but this case has drawn a lot of attention globally. Now back into his response here. A lot of these procedural decisions, orders that the judge makes about discovery requests or other fights, motions to dismiss, for instance, these are very closely followed and worth trying to understand what this scope, or worth following to understand what the scope of this litigation is eventually going to be when it gets to trial. Zoe says, this is one company in one case, but how much of an enforcer has the SEC been within the crypto space so far? Mr. Michaels responds, major. Much more than any other federal regulator. They have been, I don't know if the officials would ever say this, but they've been making the case that they are the regulator, that there really is no substitute for the SEC when it comes to investor protection, and Ripple is their biggest legal adversary, biggest legal test so far in this world, because they mounted a very, very big legal fight. And XRP was once the world's 3rd largest cryptocurrency, so this is no small matter, small litigation for the SEC. If they lose, I think regulators really have to look in the mirror and ask how far they can take this model of enforcement that they've been using, which frankly has worked quite successfully so far. Now, Ms. Thomas responds, a lot of crypto companies and their supporters have called for Congress to write new regulation. The financial rules that we have now date back, a lot of them, to the 1930s. But I imagine if we do get new rules, that they're going to have some opinions about what those should be like. What kinds of things would they be, or what kinds of things would they be after if those are created? I think fundamentals the industry often disagrees with. The notion that the SEC is the right regulator, said Mr. Thomas, or Mr. Michaels, at least because they say the SEC applies, the rules the SEC applies don't fit this industry. These rules that the SEC applies and enforces were written for the securities markets, which involve a whole bunch of types of actors or businesses that don't exist in crypto, but sometimes don't exist at all, or they do something fundamentally different in crypto. The world of cryptocurrency doesn't map perfectly onto the securities world. And so I think fundamentally the industry wants Congress to recognize that and to tell the SEC either write some very customized rules, or alternatively wants Congress to write a totally new legislative framework for cryptocurrencies and digital assets, which might not be enforced by the SEC at all, but might be enforced by a different federal agency, such as the agency that regulates the world of futures and derivatives, the CFTC. And so that's the end of the section of the podcast about the SEC versus Ripple case. But really interesting synopsis there. Good research that Dave Michaels did here, and really bringing this to the attention of the broader public. We, as a community, have followed the case very closely, but I think this is new information for a lot of the broader community. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Bitcoin shirt here. When I went to the North American Bitcoin Conference, there were a lot of people who were unfamiliar with XRP, who were unfamiliar with the case. Even within the subset of individuals who are so interested in crypto that they paid to attend a conference talking about Bitcoin, NFTs, altcoins. So it's still got some work to do. Still need to get the word out there and to get people to understand the possible huge ramifications here on the cryptocurrency space from the SEC versus Ripple case. So they're doing great work at the Wall Street Journal. Of course, major kudos to Fox Business and some of the other networks and platforms that have started picking this up. Forbes, for instance, we've seen recently as well. So really good that we're getting more attention, more and more every day as this case drags on. Now, in the last video I made, we talked about some of the rulings from Judge Torres. We're seeing on the court side that they're getting a little bit more active as far as making rulings, getting orders out there, decreasing the timelines. Some of the orders that she gave had a date 2 weeks from now instead of giving 4 weeks as some of the orders in the past. So we're seeing a condensing of the timeline, and so I think that bodes well as we move through the rest of Q1. Hopefully we can get some traction moving into the second quarter this year. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that we'll get a little bit more action and activity now that the SEC is getting more into the headlines and maybe they're starting to feel some of the pressure, especially as they have lost some of their key people, right? We lost Elud Roisman as one of the commissioners. We've seen various directors and lawyers leave the company, or the agency rather, that the government agency, as a result of some of the things happening there. We've seen in the headlines some of these accusations of impropriety.
I'm your guy. I will keep you posted. I'm your advocate. I'll be back on a daily basis, usually multiple times per day, with these videos to keep you updated with everything going on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to share any of my videos with your friends, family, social media, or anybody who may care to listen. Thanks so much for your continued support. I'm always here for you. I want to help you through this time. So thank you so much for continuing to choose me. Enjoy your day, stay safe, and I'll catch you again probably in a couple hours. Thanks, everybody. See you later.